In 2020, the Frontier School Division in Manitoba was using the Our School School Climate Survey. In 2021, the division adopted the Early Years Evaluation and Confident Learners Literacy Program as part of an educational prosperity program.
The reason we were motivated to get involved in, how can I say it, a more robust reading strategy was because our students couldn't read by the end of grade 3 at a grade 3 level. And that was kind of our target. We want our students to read at the end of grade 3 at a grade 3 level because we really kind of believe in learning to read leads you to reading to learn. 92% of our students were in the emerging level in grade 1, 2, and 3 of the schools that were in the Educational Prosperity Program. The results we've seen this year in our students with the schools that are in our program with the Learning Bar is an overall increase well beyond our expectations. We had set 10%, that was kind of the brand promise, and our overall average was, I think, around 25%. And some schools have gone beyond that. We know that some schools have struggled a little bit for a variety of reasons, and ours aren't as high as the 25%, but the overall, that's where the average is. So we're pretty excited by that. We're really excited by that. At our school committee conference this year, when that data came up on the screen, that we had moved from 92% in the emerging level to, I think at that time we were, I think we were 71. We had moved 20%. School committee conferences, all of our school committee members from across our division, we have 42 schools and every school has a school committee, and they work closely with the principal. There was applause. So it was a pretty fine moment. What it's created is a belief. A belief in what we're doing is going to pay off. And that's key, because in education we have this system that kind of is part of the culture. If I wait long enough, this too shall pass. Even if everything was to walk away, the skills that have been learned by our teachers through the intense PLCs and PD stay with them. After we got through that kind of pushback, that kind of, boy, this is a lot of work, do we have to meet every week? Then what happened is we found a whole new level of buy-in someplace around January, February. And the other thing that occurred was wherever we had strong literacy leads in those programs, the collaboration went off the charts. And I would have superintendents come back and who had participated in a PLC and kind of be, well, I'll say it this way, over the moon in terms of the conversation that they were hearing, which was a significantly different conversation. A conversation much more focused on student learning and strategies for student learning than they were at the beginning of the year. When we think about day-to-day tasks and the impact our work with the Learning Bar has had on leadership in the school, we've moved, for those administrators who were a part of the program, we've moved from a managerial to more of thinking around instructional leadership. The elements that were really important in the program, I would say, is probably, there's, I think, 3 that stand out. The first one would be the making sure that our teachers went online and read and looked at what they needed to be looking at online. And the way in which we did that was tracking their minutes. And it was very clear that some of our literacy leads had already spent 800-900 minutes looking at the information that was online, and those were the schools that were flourishing. So there was a direct correlation between time spent there and success in classroom or success in schools. So we reminded, I can't tell you how many times I would talk to principals, and I mean superintendents, area superintendent, and say, here's what I noticed, because I had access to that, and I'd go on, here's what I noticed. So-and-so is way down in minutes, and so I need you to find out what's going on there with that principal, because we're not getting kind of the results that we expect to get. The other thing that made a huge difference was, even though I was asked on a couple of occasions to do the PLCs once every 2 weeks, I said no. And I was just a mean person by saying that they had to meet every single week. And that was with a learning bar person, and that paid off. That created a kind of momentum so that you couldn't forget every 2 weeks, or could choose not to do it for a week and then suddenly have to do it and come back and report. You had a week, often 2 or 3, maybe as many as 5 days, in your classroom to do the things that you had talked about at that PLC, and then you had a chance to report, and there is the exchange, and the principals had to be a part of that, and a lot of my area superintendents were a part of that. So those PLCs were significant. The other piece, and the third thing that I would say probably brought about, and I don't know if this is the greatest, where the biggest success was, but the leadership component. Without that, I think this would have been a failure. I think that when we said to our area superintendents, and we said to our assistant superintendent who's in charge of academics and our principals, that this is mandatory that you're in, and that we're going to do this as a leadership group along with our teachers, and I think that was significant. And then the exploration that we did, the conversation we had with those leaders about what it takes to be the leader, and how do you now help teachers overcome the obstacles, or how do you, as a leader of a school, recognize what the obstacles are that your teachers in grade 1, 2, and 3 in this case are facing, and how do we move that? I knew the other work that the Learning Bar had done, and I knew the work that Dr. Williams had done. So I trusted that, because I knew that that was based in research and it was sound. I spent a lot of time with my assistant superintendent who's in charge of academics, and there we're spending a lot of time on literacy and numeracy, and so we talked an awful lot about this. Our greatest fear was that we would throw out everything we had been trying to do till that point, because this would come in. And so when we found a way of thinking that we could balance that, and I think we have, I don't think we're good at it yet, but I think we're working at that. When I said to the Learning Bar, but I'm not throwing out, it's got to work, it's got to support. And so we started K to 12, 1 to 8, and then we narrowed it down to 1 to 3, and we did some pilots. And the other thing that we did, I think was really wise, was we used an area 4, which had already done the EYE, and that was success. So that's how it was. But the truth is, I trusted the partners. I believed in their program, but I wasn't sure. I simply spoke to everybody that listened to me that this was going to be great for us.